Well, good morning. Tropical storm conditions are upon us, so if you're watching, the message is hunker down and stay safe. All hospital emergency rooms are open with the exceptions of those that are in evacuation zones. So if you have a medical emergency, dial 911. Any other issues, you can call 630-CITY. This will be the last scheduled briefing. However, as conditions continue to develop, we will be in here with you and provide you information on an as-needed basis. Again, I want to thank those of you in the media for, on the front end of this, keeping everybody informed. As we get into the middle of this, continuing to keep everybody informed. And people need to know that we are prepared for the back end of this. There's a strategy that's already being worked for reentry. We don't know when reentry into evacuation zones obviously will be available, but there is a strategy in place so we can get in there, check it out when the storm leaves, and implement a strategy that will work. With that, I'd like to have now Angie, again, who I said yesterday with the National Weather Service that we've been so grateful to have her here with us through this.
Hey, good morning. My name's Angie Agnetti. I'm a meteorologist with the National Weather Service and happy to be here part of the emergency response team at the Incident Command Center for Hurricane Matthew. Yesterday afternoon, we were talking about a Category 4 storm potentially offshore of our coast. This morning, we're talking about a high-end Category 2, Category 3, tracking just offshore of our local coastline as we get into this afternoon and into this evening. Now, what this means is we have a decrease in the forecasted wind magnitudes along our coast. The peak of the winds will be setting up this afternoon to this evening, with the peak winds along the immediate coastline of getting around 60 to 80 miles an hour, with higher gusts up to 90. Farther inland, west of the intercoastal, we're going to translate that down to sustained speeds of 40 to 60 with gust up to 80. And again, the peak in that wind speed would be this evening, late this afternoon into this evening. Still looking for significant tree damage and power outages and some structural damage, but the forecasted wind magnitude has decreased since this time yesterday. In terms of storm surge, there is still the potential for life-threatening storm surge along the immediate coastline, and those values are coming up to around 7 to 9 feet. This time yesterday we were briefing 9 to 12 feet. So although the magnitude has decreased, we still are considering this a potentially life-threatening surge inundation for those along the immediate coastline. And we're going to push that farther inland towards about Blunt Island and into the northern part of the intercoastal waterway, where we could see magnitudes of surge of 6 to 9 feet. As we come farther down the St. Johns Basin into the downtown area, we're looking for a maximum inundation of up to 3 feet. And then pushing southward down into the more vulnerable areas where we have a strong northerly wind push in the Ortega Basin as well as Julington Creek of up to 3 feet of inundation as well. Now, I do want to caution that as the storm pushes off to our north and east as we get into this evening, we're expecting a subsiding of hurricane conditions by midnight tonight along our coastline, and then continued improvement below tropical storm force along the coastline as we get through daybreak tomorrow morning. So again, our peak in intensity of winds and the surge will be this afternoon, this evening time frame, with improving conditions after midnight tonight. For those along the St. Johns River Basin, elevated water levels will continue to rise today, and we are anticipating these elevated water levels to be trapped within the St. Johns Basin for possibly up to a week, and that's due to the water sloshing up and down north to south from Palatka back up to San Marco area. So those in normally flood-prone locations like San Marco, Riverside, could likely experience an extended period of flooding problems for the upcoming week, just due to the amount of water that we've had accumulate within the St. Johns Basin leading up to Hurricane Matthew. Again, we don't want to let down our guard. By all means, even though the forecast magnitudes have come down in terms of winds and surge, the surge especially could still pose a significant threat to life and property, especially along the immediate coastline. So although the magnitudes are coming down, let's still remain vigilant and continue out where we've sought shelter and continue to stay there to ride out this storm.
Thank you, and I would just remind folks that when we began our evacuation a couple of days ago, after the initial announcement of the evacuation, we began to see the storm intensify. So the message is now, as we ride this thing out, life-threatening storm surge is still expected. There is no change there. People that are now in their homes need to take this seriously. We have 18 cut and toss crews ready on the back end of this. They've been out on the front end, but as of these tropical storm conditions now, they'll be ready to go back out when conditions are safe, as well as 12 stormwater crews, which obviously will help with any drainage issues to that end. Sheriff, did you want to add?
Sure, just a couple quick points. So the evacuation really overall went well the last couple of days, so we want to thank the public for their cooperation in that. Traffic is very light right now, but we are encouraging everyone now, stay in your homes. We've passed that window now where we are encouraging evacuation, and we're asking people just to hunker down where you are. As you've heard, we're going to experience a deteriorating weather condition all the way through midnight tonight, with the peak really starting around 2 o'clock today. We will continue to monitor that. We are currently still handling calls for service and will until the very last minute that we cannot, and as soon as we can, pick that back up again, we will. So last night, in terms of call volume, really light last night, lighter than even normal call volume last night. So again, we want to thank everybody for their cooperation on that, and really just to echo the mayor again, don't take your guard down. This forecast has not changed that significantly, and we encourage people to stay in their homes and hunker down and ride it out through the morning. Thank you.
And again, 630 City with any issues, medical emergency, 911. And with that, we'll take any questions.
Mayor, can you kind of explain why this will be your last briefing if there were problems that you're going to publicly be out here? We've had some problems yesterday, of course, with the website and even your email servers went down, if that's what you're relying on. Why is that? Why not come in the height of this storm?
Sure. Well, you're here. I'm here. We're all here, and you will have access and availability to me as needed. Public safety is my top concern. So make no mistake about it. While they're not scheduled, I'm in the building with you, and as we need to get information out, we will be with you getting that information out.
Can you talk about any problems, Sheriff, from last night? You said the calls were light, but were there any situations that you had to go out or anything like that?
Well, we were out last night, and we're out right now handling calls for service like we do every day. But last night, just a very light call volume. So that tells me that people have heeded the warning, that they are inside, that people are not out on the roads. And that's good. That's where we want it to be. So we anticipate, obviously, more challenges from the weather as we move through the day to day. We'll continue to evaluate that with JFRD and all the staff that are out there working on the road and make the determinations as we adjust that service. We'll have to do that throughout the day. So there's not a timetable for that, but it's something that we'll be evaluating as the day goes on.
I know it's so hard to estimate, but any idea of the number of people that actually did heed your evacuation notice, and what we see at the shelters? Are they full? What's the situation?
Well, I'll briefly comment about the evacuation notice. So I know that traffic picked up significantly yesterday afternoon, as many of you reported. We had some stop-and-go traffic on I-10, which was really good. However, everything stayed green beyond 301. So we had a lot of congestion leaving the city, which tells me that a lot of people obviously were, heeded the evacuation warning. But it's hard to put your finger on how many people actually left. So I know yesterday we talked about potentially 20% to 25%. It may be a bit better than that, but we'll have to, come up with a way to gauge that. But it may be after the storm. So in terms of the shelters, though, let me turn it over to the mayor, Steve.
Yeah, we have shelter capacity. Folks that chose not to evacuate, though, stay informed. As we get through this storm, there's certainly capacity for folks to go to a shelter. I would say as to the evacuation, don't know exact numbers of people that left, but we could not have been clearer. When I was out yesterday and even this morning talking to folks that did evacuate, they said that they heard the message loud and clear, and some folks just chose not to follow the order.
Mayor, in light of what we just heard from the National Weather Service, for those people that did heed the evacuation orders and are in shelters or elsewhere, they're going to be clamoring, at dawn and asking when can they return to their homes. What's the answer to that question?
Absolutely. The answer is that is the strategies being worked right now to get our teams in, to make sure to notify folks when it's safe to reenter, and then a reentry strategy point. Sheriff, did you want to talk specifically a little bit to that?
So, and really specifically at the beaches. So we will constantly, as soon as we're able to do some damage assessment, and really, JFRD is going to take the lead on a lot of that. and as soon as the winds are down below that 50 sustained, we'll start that process. So we'll be able to put the barricades up where they need to be, look for down power lines, and don't drive through this, this road because of flooding. Quick points on that, obviously, the power lines, if you see a down power line, do not touch it as we get, on the other side of the storm. If you see a barricade in a roadway and you see some water, just assume the barricade is there for a reason. Don't drive through the water. It's probably too deep for you to drive through. So those are things that again, we won't be able to correct right away, but we will be able to at least notify, the public through barricades and things like that's happening. So we need an opportunity to get in there and do that. The beaches specifically, we will be on the western side of the bridges. We have coordinated with all the beaches communities, and we will control the ingress back to the beach from people who have evacuated. So that process will begin as soon as, again, the damage assessment teams from the beaches communities and from JFRD and other partners have gone in and done that, made sure it's safe for people to be back in those communities, and then we will start that control back. What we're trying to control is sightseers and gawkers and those type of things. We want to get the people who live in those communities back in their homes so they can start repairing and doing the things they need to do, and we don't need to have people out sightseeing hindering that. So.
You'll expect prolonged power outages, and if so, where?
Well, we do. I'll let someone else speak to the power outages, but yeah.
Let me speak to a little bit to the reentry as well. Look, I understand wanting to get back to your home. I understand the discomfort of not being where you reside, wanting to see potential damage. But it's for your own safety, and public safety is the top issue. We've got professionals here. I've been saying this for days. This Emergency Operations Center, your city, your teams, your agencies are professionals, and they are prepared for this, strategically prepared. So we will make sure that it is safe. So please, the discomfort and the frustration of wanting to get back in, know that it's for your own safety. Yes, we expect power outages. I mean, this storm and the wind gusts are going to continue to deteriorate in the hours ahead. So expect power outages, expect long power outages. JEA is ready, as are independent contractors and other utilities, but they will certainly not send those men and women out in unsafe conditions.
For people who did not evacuate, what should they be doing right now?
Hunker down. I mean, hunker down, pay attention, and anybody when you're in homes right now, anywhere you are with the potential for power outages, make sure you have your flashlights in a place where you know where they are, your radios with battery backups. You don't want to be looking for these things when the power goes out and it's pitch black.
And if you live in a mobile home, should you leave or should you hunker down as well?
Movement right now is incredibly dangerous. Getting out on the roads under tropical storm conditions is not advisable.
Mayor, your office has been pretty vocal in terms of putting out press releases to squash rumors that have been going around on social media in the wake of the storm, specifically rumors of potential looting and yes. Can you speak to that rumor and squash any others that have come to mind that maybe?
I'm glad you brought that up. And look, I know when we've got a catastrophic event upon us, it's intense, and at times things can be seem chaotic. We've all got to keep our heads about us. All of us here at the EOC, all of us in the media. So when we see social media posts, before they get pushed out into the public sphere, beyond that, we just need to all be communicating and make sure we're getting the right message out. Because when a message goes out, when there's still an evacuation under order, that there was looting that actually wasn't happening, there are people at the beaches making decisions based on the care of their own home. Mike, did you want to add to that?
No, I would say this. I mean, and keep this in mind, too, for the community. We have more policemen on the street today and have had for the last couple of days than we normally do. So we are maintaining normal operations. We have the same number of officers that we always have on the street, in addition to hundreds of others that are doing storm-related activities. So we have lots and lots of policemen on the street. None of that has changed. So we talked last night about the rumor of looting at the beaches. The beaches communities still have their officers out on the street. So there was not even an opportunity for that to happen last night. As we move into the area of time where the storm is at its peak and afterwards, we're going to be supplemented again with National Guard that'll help us with security and presence and those type of things, and really to give some of our people some relief for a couple of days so we can get back into transitioning into normal operations. But we have lots of policemen on the street, lots of security out there. We're going to supplement that with state resources. So I would not want anybody to be concerned that there is no public safety available. That's not true. So lots of people out there, and everybody's keeping an eye on things like that.
And the moment that rumor broke, we were in immediate communication. The sheriff and I, senior members of my team. Again, we just have to be careful before these kind of messages go out, because it is in fact a public safety issue.
Sheriff, in the same vein you had just mentioned about the national weather, yesterday you said that it's going to be concentrated around the beaches. Has that changed at all? Will the resources stay there, or could they potentially be spread out to other places?
They will be spread out. So the plan is to use them in a couple different areas. And again, depending on how many we actually get allocated, keep in mind the entire state is asking for resources, and lots of other people are looking for help as well. But we will use them for, after the pods potentially at the beach where we distribute maybe water, those type of things. We'll use them for security concerns in Duval County and at the beach. They will help us with that reentry process at the bridges to the beach. So a lot of different areas where we can use manpower, we will leverage some guard resources to do that.
Is there the potential of any curfews being put in place as the weather conditions?
Again, you have to always have every option on the table when you're in uncertain conditions, but I have no plans at this moment to impose a curfew. But I always keep all of my tools in the toolbox and available to me.
Sheriff, when we talk about potentially like life-threatening storm surge out at the beach, I mean, what is the strategy for, say the storm's at its peak, like rescue operations or something like that's necessary? I mean, what does that look like?
So there will be a period of time based on, the weather, where we will not be able to get to people. And I think, again, to echo the mayor, this goes back to us calling for evacuations, 2 days ago now. So people that have chosen to stay, especially at the beaches, they put themselves in harm's way. So we will do all that we can, and we will continue to, we'll push that envelope where we can. But clearly there's going to be a period of time where we will not be able to respond based on the weather. If that never materializes, and keep in mind, we will still be out there. So there's not I don't have a red line drawn at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. We're watching the weather, we're watching the forecast, and we'll have to make that determination on the fly. This is something that, Kurt and I are talking about too, the fire chief as well. So we're constantly monitoring this. So there's no time where this is going to happen. Hopefully it never happens, but we anticipate that it will at some point. And if it does, we'll be on it minute by minute to be able to put people, back into play as soon as we can. So.
Just a question for the National Weather Service, Andy.
Yes, sir.
We've been hearing a lot after the storm, but really coming up since, we're approaching what's going to happen. Can you summarize again what the people at home that stayed here, what they're going to be experiencing in the next 3, 4, 5 hours?
That's a good question. So right now we are experiencing tropical storm conditions across all of Duval County and the metro area, and that includes sustained winds of 40 miles an hour in these bands of heavy rainfall that are coming in with gusts up to 60. And we expect those wind speeds to continue to increase. So if you're hunkering down inside is what we advise. You're just going to see an uptick in the winds. You're going to see potentially accumulating water, especially in poor drainage areas. And on the coast, you're going to see an increase in surf and an increase in waves. One of the things I do want to caution is the strongest winds are going to be in these convective bands that are rotating around the center as the storm moves northward up the coast. And as we get into this afternoon and the evening hours, that's going to be the bulk of the storm. But as we get after midnight, we've had cases where folks want to go outside between lulls and rain bands to assess their storm damage. And when folks go out during that time frame, even a non-significant gust of wind, say 30, 40 miles an hour, can blow down a tree limb, which can cause fatalities. So please stay in your safe place until the warnings are lifted, until you're advised to come out. So even after the core of the storm passes, which is this afternoon into this evening, once we get after midnight tonight, it's a tendency to want to go out and assess how much damage you've had. And we've had fatalities in our area where folks are struck by debris that is still knocked down by even weaker magnitude. So, in terms of what folks are going to see, they're going to see a progressive increase in winds and a progressive buildup in water levels, whether you're on the river or along the coast this afternoon, this evening, and then those magnitudes of both wind and surge coming down after midnight tonight. But stay hunkered down until the all clear is given by emergency response officials.
I want to echo and stress the importance of that. No matter how uncomfortable you are, no matter how tired you are being cooped up, do not let that get to you. Your personal safety, your family's personal safety is of the utmost importance. Do not do something stupid. The damage can be checked later. Stay inside and stay safe. All right.
Mayor Curry, can you, or the sheriff, give a sense about what kind of logistical support is standing by in the way of like electric utility repair crews to get things back?
Actually, probably Steve.
Yes.
Tremendous amount of traffic on I-10 yesterday, crews from all over the country.
Sure. We'll have JEA address that.
Yeah, right now, JEA is completely ready for this storm. We are not standing down. We have about 413 people right now ready to respond to the storm. Right now, they are responding to the small number of outages we have, and they will continue to do that until it's unsafe to do that based on weather. Then they will go inside and hunker down with the rest of us until the height of the storm is passed. And then tomorrow, we expect to have in excess of 800 people responding to this storm, both restoration and damage assessment.
And I can tell you that on the front end, the utility, the JEA, working with the state and the governor to make sure that we have access to other assets and resources as well. That was done on the front end. All right. Thank you.